Two decisions from running back targets today, one of them had visited, one of them whom was going to visit this weekend. So let's just set that up right now. Gavin Sawchuk, 4-star, top 100 running back out of the Denver area, committing to Oklahoma. He was set to visit Notre Dame this coming weekend. Dallin Hayden, 4-star running back from the Memphis area, committing to Ohio State today. On Tuesday, he had officially visited Notre Dame in the first weekend Notre Dame had official visitors. So that brings it to, at least among the big three running backs that we've talked about on here a lot, Nicholas Singleton, the 4-star from Pennsylvania, is kind of the one where, all right, all eyes kind of on that. What's he going to do? He's the one of those big three per se left, and he is heading to official visits to Texas A&M and Alabama this week. So a lot going on there, but yeah, I think it's really the running backs that you kind of take center stage, at least in this point in between these official visit weekends. Of all right, Notre Dame's, if it wants to get one of those big three, it's going to have to be Nicholas Singleton.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll dive into the Singleton one, but to touch on the other two, Sawchuk and Hayden, I mean, let's look at the future cast picks. I mean, Josh McQuiston, the Oklahoma Sooner Scoop Rivals publisher, put in a prediction for him to go, or for Sawchuk to go to Oklahoma, August 25th, 2020. I mean, so this has been a recruitment that for quite some time folks have been thinking was leaning towards Oklahoma. I've personally thought it was an Oklahoma Notre Dame battle. But, as Ricky Bobby said, if you're not first, you're last. So whether Notre Dame finished second or 15th in this one doesn't really matter. But it did come down to Ohio State, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and USC. Visited Oklahoma this past weekend. Popped to the Sooners, and not really a big surprise. I mean, I would have figured he would have taken the Notre Dame visit this weekend, but I don't know what was happening on Oklahoma's running back board. Did they want to bring other guys in? I don't know, but it was apparent that Sawchuk, knew where he wanted to be, so he went ahead and committed to Oklahoma, and you certainly can't fault him. The other guy, Dallin Hayden, the vibe after that first official visit weekend, Patrick, June 11th through the 13th for Notre Dame, was that Hayden was kind of the big talk. And has Notre Dame pulled ahead for Hayden? And that's kind of what the feeling I got was. But I reported in the Gold Standard that Monday, that would have been June 14th, that I think Ohio State's going to pull right back ahead, and he's going to end up at Ohio State. And that's what happened. It's not often I'm correct, but this time I was. So not a surprise to see Dallin Hayden land with Ohio State. If you look at the future cast picks on that one, they were very heavily in favor of Ohio State as old as April 13th from an Ohio State reporter. So, again, certainly not a surprise to see Hayden land at Ohio State. It was interesting that they committed on the same day, announced publicly at least. Hayden's birthday, June 22nd, and Sawchuk announced it with just a nice subtle tweet. Boomer Sooner. I can appreciate the subtlety there. So that, yeah, like Patrick said, that leaves Notre Dame with one of their big three left, and this one has it's taken over the past few days. I mean, everything recruiting talk right now, the fans, media, everyone is all on the Nicholas Singleton. I don't know what you call it, hype train. This is the laser focus right now. Is what is Nicholas Singleton doing? It is a huge battle between Notre Dame and Penn State. It's certainly interesting that he is, as we're recording this on Tuesday, is at Texas A&M for an official visit. He's there through Thursday, and then he's expected to take an official to Alabama on Friday. So not much time to really think things over. But on Monday, he was on calls with Lance Taylor and Tommy Rees, a couple Notre Dame coaches. Penn State was also reaching out and in contact with them. So I like Notre Dame right now, and I know there's other predictions out there for him to go to Notre Dame. this one I'm waiting. I'm not gonna rush this one because my sources tell me that it's 50-50 between Notre Dame and Penn State. I think it's personally my read is more at 60-40 Notre Dame, but I'm just not gonna flip a coin right now to put in a future cast pick. I want to be a little bit more sure. I don't like throwing those out without having some confidence in it. And I'll be the first to admit that I don't hold to that sometimes. Sometimes I will put in picks and then I really regret it later on. But sometimes the school leads and then things change. So I would rather be last and stay right and consistent rather than put things in and have to change them. I don't want to lead our viewers and readers astray on that kind of thing. So long way to say that it's quite the battle for Notre Dame. This is the last big three back. We've been talking about them for so long. Singleton, Hayden, Sawchuk. Does Notre Dame, if Notre Dame loses on Singleton, what do you do, Patrick? Do you go after a Damari Alston or an Emeka Megwa, four-star back from Texas who did camp at Notre Dame last week? I'll probably have a story on that. Actually not sure at blueandgold.com, but reported about that. Quinshawn Judkins down in Alabama, Jabran Payne from Cincinnati. Do you go to one of those guys? Do you just stick with Jadarian Price and take one back in the class and maybe use that number elsewhere? What do you think, Patrick?
I mean, if they think getting a second back is the big priority here, then yeah, you move on to those guys you just mentioned. And it's not like any of them are, guys with MAC offers and stuff like that. These are still well regarded and in some cases highly rated recruits who Notre Dame would do well to land just in a vacuum, even though, of course, in this context, it is, yes, after potentially or hypothetically missing on those big three guys. And I mean, it's very possible that, let's say, Hayden and Sawchuk didn't commit within minutes of each other today, that it still ends up in the same situation of, okay, Singleton is Notre Dame's back, and those two ended up where they're at. It's just now those dominoes suddenly fell really quickly, and it just intensifies the attention on it. But that's recruiting. It's not for the faint of heart. So for whenever Singleton makes a decision, probably an anxious moment for a lot of Notre Dame recruitniks out here.
Yeah, so that's kind of the outlook if they don't get them. Personally, the guy I like the most of that group I mentioned is probably Quinshawn Judkins. I think he gives Notre Dame a lot of what they could use. He's an all around. He's a little bit on the bigger side, but he's just a really explosive player. But I think he complements well Jadarian Price, who I think's not a quote unquote big back. He's an all-around back as well, but a little bit more on the speedy side. So, Notre Dame in the last class didn't sign any burners. Price more on the burner side. Really looking forward to seeing him. I will definitely make a game out to Denison, Texas this fall. Sorry for sneezing off camera. I know our video folks probably saw me leave the camera, and I'm sniffling now. After my sneezes. So that's if they don't get Singleton. If they do, look, I don't want to be the guy who's like, well, Notre Dame landed Singleton, so that's who they wanted all along. Would I have said that if they got Hayden or Sawchuk? Like, that's not me. But I will say that they offered Singleton first. He was their first running back offer in the 2022 recruiting class. Guess when, Patrick? Guess when the offer was? Come on, what do we always talk about?
November 2019.
November 2019. That's when everything happened, I feel like. That was the month that Notre Dame got started on 2022 recruiting and had Singleton in. I want to say it was for the USC game, and then it was either Boston College or Navy. And then after whichever one it was, he got the offer in Brian Kelly's office. So long-time target for Notre Dame. This guy's been talking to Lance Taylor forever, and I do think of the three, he's kind of the most well-rounded. He's big. My sources told me that he looked like an SEC type back when he was on his visit. That's always something you want to hear. I don't think he's kind of that Christian McCaffrey, Will Shipley, Gavin Sawchuk, all-purpose back. But he can catch the ball out of the backfield and do some of those things. I don't think you're going to split Singleton out in the slot, but he's a darn good back. So that would be a huge get for Notre Dame if they're able to land Singleton. But this is just one that Penn State is going to fight and claw. They are not going to lay down if he says, "Hey, I'm going to Notre Dame." They're going to fight and claw, and then even if he commits to Notre Dame after that, they will still go after him until literally it's signing day and Singleton signs. That's at least my opinion how I kind of see things.
Yeah, a few things. One, I can't wait to on signing day do the story of how Notre Dame's 2022 class was started the groundwork in November 2019, and especially if in fact Singleton ends up being the running back.
I've got all
Uh,
those visitor lists. I've got them all archived. I will bring them back to life. Yeah, there were some big time recruits that visited back then that I've looked through the list and I'm like, holy crap, why didn't they offer this kid? Like he blew up and they had him on campus when he had two offers. So, that's just kind of bound to happen though.